kind of thing.
Oh no, I mean, I
Oh,
assume that you're going to like do a bit of editing here and there, especially when I wax on for way too long.
well, no, the actual conversation, I always keep in as a full conversation because I just feel like it's true to life that way and it's a lot more authentic. Because it's like, when you watch two people have a conversation, like sometimes you do see it on podcasts where they'll chop the audio up and you'll see like
Yeah.
it's a dead giveaway when someone's like, I don't know if you noticed this, but when you watch a podcast or you watch any kind of like interview where someone's like opening their mouth as the interviewer is asking the question, but then the words they say are totally different to what they said in that clip.
Yeah.
It's like they'll open their mouth as if they're going to go like a R sound. I think, but then they'll just be right in the middle of a sentence. It'll all be like perfectly coherent. And it's like they didn't answer it like that. Like, come on, just like
No, 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 of course
feel
not.
disingenuous. I know interviews have to run like that because of time constraints, but it's like you'd think that with the money that some videographers make and like, I don't know, it seems very, very unnatural the way they segue into it.
Well, now the beauty is going to be that we should be talking as irrationally, naturally, like just let it flow because AI can now, make a picture perfect kind of podcast, or at least a pale simulacrum of a podcast. So we should just be as wacky, gross human as possible. So
Yeah.
so we should no use editing anything. Um,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put
you,
that in actually. I'll put that
you,
in the
you,
intro.
you making me like and this should be recorded by the way. I'm in character already. You saying that made me think like how often when you're watching a movie or a TV show and they have a band playing or like someone does a guitar solo or a drum solo, it's never correct. And when
Yeah.
it is, then no one ever cares, right? Like if you're a drummer, which I am, like I will know, like I'm not the best drummer in the world, but I can tell when someone like when there's a crash sound, like the cymbal crash, but they haven't hit it, I'll see that. And it'll bother me the whole movie. But no one else will see that. But when it works, it's so good to see, and it makes me feel like, oh, they
Well, it's
cared about
like
that little
so,
detail.
so we actually have a TV show over here called Top of the Pops. I don't know if they ever have anything like that or had anything like that in America, but basically on Top of the Pops, you used to get some artists come on who would lip sync the entire thing. They just mime it,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
the studio version would play in the background, and you knew that it wasn't them. But then now and again, somebody would play live on Top of the Pops and not use the backing track.
Mm.
There'd be errors in there, but that was so beautiful to watch because it was human. I remember Phil Collins doing a set at Live Aid, which incidentally is 40 years old on the 13th, so a few days from now.
Oh wow.
I think it's the 13th. And basically he got a note really wrong. Like it was at Wembley Stadium, 100,000 people watching. And
Awesome.
yeah, and he did a dod note, but he just smiled. He just smiled it off. Like he was already a seasoned performer even back then. And like
Yeah.
just to see how human that was amazing. Like that was really cool.
I
Uh,
think that fits into the conversation actually that like you, fair watcher or listener, are gonna see that human error is like being able to shrug it off or make it part of the performance and run with it. Like that's so huge. And like the fear of that never really goes away necessarily. You're always afraid, but you learn to use the fear and cherish those moments. And I think with where marketing is, just all creative work is going now, is that people are going to be like you're never going to mm, uh may we cuss on the podcast?
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, if you fuck up, right? Like I fucked up in performances a bunch of times, and it's reduced the fear, but you still are nervous. But if you don't fuck up, if you never like fuck up in the process, you're never going to get better. You're never going to get better at the process. You're always going to be missing something, which is just being caught in the middle of the art form.
yeah, yeah.
Like it's hard to explain. Like when Phil Collins play felt the same as like an actor who fucks up a line, but then the world doesn't end. Like that's an important feeling to have. And if you're a creative in any capacity, if you don't have that, then you don't cherish when it goes well, or you don't, or you're only enjoying a percentage of the form.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's the whole. It's a really, cliche phrase. This, and you hear it all the time. But to err is human, uh,
Yeah.
and it's so true, isn't it? Like, and also, it's not. I always think it's a really unhealthy um, example to set for beginners or younger people, whether it's music or doing a podcast. That You have to get it. I remember one thing, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here, but as we've discovered, you and I
Please
both
do.
went off on
Please
tangents.
do.
No, but it's so important because I remember when I worked at a company, they came up with this strap line that was right first time, on time, every time. It was something along those lines. It was right first time, on time, every time. That's what it was. And I was like, that is the stupidest fucking slogan I've ever heard in my life. Because if we're all just like robots and we get everything right all the time, I know that the whole idea behind it was to kind of aim for perfection rather than achieve it. But it puts in people's minds this idea that you cannot fail and you cannot almost try things that are going to lead to failure. You cannot attempt to fail
Yeah.
the way. Whereas I would say fail fast because you'll learn a lot quicker. Like, and even by the way, when we talk about failure, that's such a subjective word in and of itself.
Yeah, right.
It's a load of shit. So, like, if I was watching a performance and Phil Collins sang perfectly and he played perfectly because there was a backing track in the background
Yeah.
that had been produced over many days or months, then I would grow up thinking, oh my God, like to be a musician, you have to get everything right all the time, or to do a podcast, you have to get everything right, or to even be a writer, like with AI
Yeah.
tools, you've got everything right all the time. Like I always just say to people, write as much as you can down first and then cut it down and edit it afterwards. But just like write the shitty draft, just do it. Um,
Yeah. Also, the fear, I mean, it's the fear of having nothing there. It's the fear of having a blank page and like of writing something shitty, but it's gonna be shitty. It's not gonna be great, but it's gonna be yours. And then you get to like work on it after. You get to write, you get to invent a big block of marble, and then you get to carve it. Like you get to build the materials and the thing at the same time. It's great.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And this has been really good, actually. This is a total novelty. Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots.
yo,
100%
what's up?
human, 0% AI. I'm going to trial these new intros from now on because normally I just start with that open to camera, hello and welcome to. But I actually really like just segueing in like this with a conversation because it's like we're just chatting at a bar and then people are watching us and like, oh,
Yeah.
come over and sit with us. Um,
Yes, come stranger. You don't know us, we don't know you, but come sit next to us and let us spin you a yarn.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully you'll get some value from it. And I'm sure you will on this episode. So joining me on this one is Lester Isaac Simon, a self-employed writer and content marketer based in Amsterdam and from, shall I say Boston? Is that doing it justice?
Perfectly done. Perfectly
Okay.
done.
You're actually, we were talking about this off camera. You're actually the second American who lives in Holland that I've interviewed on one of these podcasts. I also interviewed Sierra Lamb, who lives in The Hague. Is that right?
The Hague or Den Haag.
It's
And
it's
glad to be your second.
Yeah, it's what a small world.
Yeah,
So
really.
you go by the name Isaac, don't you? I literally found that out just before we started recording.
Yep, I go by Isaac. And did you hear that siren?
I did not.
Oh, how embarrassing. I did. Yeah, I go by Isaac. I like to say I'm aging into Lester. When I was a kid, full name was Lester Isaac Simon. And one, Lester is kids are cruel and also little geniuses. So Lester can be, you can rhyme a lot of horrible things with Lester. So and Isaac is a
Yeah,
little bit nicer. People used to call me Isaac. Not sure why, but it still hurt.
yeah.
But I feel like when this goes gray and when this falls out, then I will truly be a Lester.
So that was the name police going past just in case I called you Lester. And they've gone now because they know that I call you Isaac. Did they call you Lester the Jester by any chance? I just got to check
No,
that.
that would have been the nicest thing. They called me Fester, and there was a few molesters in there,
Okay.
like which we were kids too, so I didn't know where they would get that one from. But again, hurt just the
There's a
same.
cruel irony in kids making jokes about molesters. But anyway, we'll move on from
Oh,
that.
I didn't think of that. That just messed up my and that's a and
I don't even. Do you know what? I can't even.
I
What are we talking?
promise this is gonna we're gonna pivot from this from that joke.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you're here to talk about hope and how marketers can find it in 2025. So this is a real feel-good episode. There will be, some elements of doom and gloom, but we'll try and put a humorous spin on it wherever we can. So Isaac, can you start by giving us a flavor of your life and career so far, please?
Yeah, let's see if I can let's see if I can do it in a way that doesn't smack of like a classic job interview.
Yeah.
I am a writer and editor and a content marketer, and I've been formerly a tech journalist. I flitted between different jobs over the years. I got my like the reason that I arrived at where I am is I studied literature back in Massachusetts. After studying literature, I didn't want to stay in the US and be in debt and exist that way. So I became an English teacher in Spain. You don't make a lot of money, but you make a lot of friends and a lot of memories that way. And so I just kind of put off being an adult for a while in Spain. Part of that involved getting a master's in comparative literature again, to stay in Barcelona. That's where I was at the time. Traveled around a bit, and then Amsterdam. Amsterdam was a dart at the globe kind of moment where I had been there once before. I remembered it fondly, and before ever thinking about writing, I was an improviser, comic, actor, and I'd been doing improv forever and ever, like or relatively at that point. This was over 10 years ago, and I knew that Amsterdam had an English scene. I knew that it had a lot of expats that did comedy. I knew that a lot of Dutch folks would also did improv comedy, and it was a big hub for that. And so I didn't have a plan, didn't have a whole lot of cash, like really like no plan at all. Landed in Amsterdam, re-fell in love with it, and have just been here ever since, finding ways to stay. And I was lucky enough that somewhere in the past decade or so, my partner, she encouraged me to, I've been working odd jobs, and she encouraged me like, hey, you are a writer. You've done it. You've been writing off and on for years. I never made the plunge to become a full-time writer. And she encouraged me to strike out on my own, be a freelancer, and got my first client or two. And then since then, I've just been like existing as best as possible in that world, and learning as much as possible. I'm totally self-taught as a marketer, and I've had the absolute like divine grace to have been accepted into enough companies to learn on the job and get to work on some pretty fun projects. But at the moment, I'm self-employed, trying to figure it out like all of us. Hopefully, any of that made sense. That's my intro, and hopefully, there's some flavor in there as well.
Oh yeah, well yeah, exactly. And actually talking of flavor, when you talked about Spain, straight away I'm thinking of Hemingway, obviously because of the connection there.
Oh, he had the bar. There's a famous bar in Barcelona where him and Picasso and Miro would all hang out. There's a story about how Picasso once like there's a story that Picasso like would like to try to mess with Jean Miro, and he at one point Picasso like doodled on a napkin really fast, and he said like, oh, this is a Miro, and then the story goes that that doodle became the facade of an art school not far away. Don't know if I totally believe that. Worth Googling, or worth getting the AI preview of that. But I like the story. I like the idea that one artist like had it out for another and decided and some public trouncing became a facade of a building.
Yeah, God, that's how you know the power you've got when you know something that you can doodle like that turns into a building. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
yeah, and also going on about flavor. What tapas do you like? I've got to ask you that because if you lived in Spain, I'm sure you immersed yourself in the local culinary scene.
Oh, obviously. Side note, food is my love language. I love writing. I love theater. These are all things that I live by. But in a past life, I think I was a deli owner, or a diner owner. I used to say in Spain when I was very much alone there, and the first time I was an expat and learning how to be an expat, I would always tell like groups of other Europeans or something that I could make the best burger in that given place, and then host nights at whatever little apartment I was living at. And that's how I like made a bunch of friends. Um, so that's how you knew I was American too. But yeah, my favorite tapas, like I love a tortilla de española, like the basic tortilla with the egg and the potatoes and onions.
Yeah,
That's so geometrically perfect. And if
yeah,
you put that in a baguette with some shaved tomato,
yeah.
that's perfect to me. That's like my favorite. It was my favorite breakfast when I lived there.
I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, like a toasted baguette kind of thing.
No, there's like a fresh toasty baguette, but you never toast the baguette.
Okay, so like it's
That's
just
what that's like kids would eat for breakfast too. Like I taught primary school, and kids would show up with like a baguette with a tortilla inside and a little bit of tomato, a little bit of olive oil, and it was delicious.
yeah. Do you know what I was? This is kind of related, but kind of not. but I was in Portugal last year, and honestly, the pastel de nata. I don't know if you've had that before, but I mean, it's
So many, love it.
yeah, it's amazing. I don't remember it like because obviously I went to Seville. I told you about this before, but it was like 2 years ago, and I went to Andalusia. I went to Seville, Cordoba, and Cadiz. I can't really remember what I had for breakfast, but most of the breakfasts I had were in the hotel, and it's all quite bland.
Mm.
I do remember the things like the salmorejo,
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
which I'm guessing you've had before. Yeah, it was amazing. Like, what else did they have over there? Oh, there's like it's going to annoy me now because it was all like local names for stuff. So it's like braised pork cheek was another one.
I don't remember the Spanish, like, I don't remember the Spanish word for that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that one. I mean, I love jamon serrano. I love jamon iberico. I love like just all the
yeah,
cured meats. I went to a ham factory where up in the up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. I was in Granada and they drove us up windy mountain paths until we arrived at this old warehouse where they kept all of the ham legs on salt for like 12, 18 months, whatever, and then they would hang them. So you would be walking through just like rows and rows of hanging pork legs. It was so haunting and smelled so good.
yeah.
And
Oh,
so like, it was really cool to see how that stuff is made.
yeah.
It's just time and salt. Time, it's just patience, like patience and schmaltz.
Yeah, the hanging. Yeah, that's quintessentially Spain, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I never went to Granada actually. I really wish I had. A lot of people talk highly of it.
Worth going. I haven't been in a long, long time since I lived there in 2011.
Yeah,
I lived there for just a year, and I regret now, like part of my story is that I moved up to Amsterdam wanting to be more of a full-time actor improviser, wanting to do a lot more creative stuff, wanting to maybe get more into like tech and corporates. Just in Spain was I like I was my earlier 20s and Spain was a place where I was studying, really struggling to find work and living like cash like cash handoff to cash handoff. I was just teaching English to whoever I could teach. And I think now looking back, I don't know if I really used that time as best as I could have because I like especially if I knew I wasn't going to stay forever, I could have spent more time just lounging and relaxing and discovering who I was because the weather is gorgeous, the food is gorgeous, the wine is amazing, like the people are so relaxed. And I was in no I was there was nothing pushing me to be in a rush, but I was in a rush. And and I wouldn't ever wish that feeling on anyone because but I think that that's a lot that feeling is what has been accelerated to all of us now, like bringing it back to where marketing and comms and
yeah,
all that is. I feel like everyone now feels like we are at an apocalyptic moment, and now I'm a much more relaxed person. So I can imagine that people who feel the way I did back then with that added pressure can't even imagine. Like I only get glimpses of it in my LinkedIn algorithm, but I would hope that but I would hope that that's being able to give yourself a bit more grace. I hope that that's a possibility for some people because I wasn't able to do it for myself then. And I could have enjoyed Spain or stayed longer, maybe even and found a different kind of life. I love my life now, but I regret not seeing what I had then.
well, yeah. I mean, I'm full of these, full of these cliche phrases. But again, it's the
Mm,
whole thing of you don't know what you've got until it's gone, until the moment's passed. I guess in your case, once the moment's passed, but sometimes again, like on the flip side of that, you can eulogize certain moments and think they were amazing. And it's a lot like when you come out of a relationship, you only remember the good parts of that relationship. But then as time goes on, you're like, actually, that was quite shit in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's kind of doing justice to your own experience
mm,
one way or another. Like there will always be good and bad parts to most things.
yeah,
Really. And we will come on to talk about that, about how quickly the world is accelerating and how I think we could all do with it slowing down a little bit. But
yeah.
I want to explore a little bit more about your interests outside of your day job, quote unquote, because, I know you've talked to me before about Dungeons and Dragons and some of the
Oh yeah.
improv you've done and creative writing and literary training. So can we explore that in a bit more detail and kind of how it informs who you are as a marketer?
Yeah, I mean, you say D&D. I think my first the first time I knew that I was pretty decent at storytelling and acting probably was when I played D&D. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons um when I was 7 years old, I think. I went to a summer camp and that was and there was an ongoing game of D&D that the counselors had for the kids, and it was like mind blowing how how comfortable and seen and heard I felt in that really nerdy little place. Um, and D&D became like, one of my first passions, I think, was actually D&D, if I really think about it. Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games were how I made friends when I was younger. I was fun little side note. I've had three open heart surgeries,
Wow.
which when I was 4 months old, 4 years old, and 12 years old. The first two made it so I wasn't able to participate in athletics to any real degree. Like I could do gym class but in the US, athletics are a big part of school and a big part of socializing. And so I couldn't really do that. So I was like I was kind of a forgotten toy in the toy box to a degree. And D&D is how I made like three or four core, like three, four, five, depending on which year you're talking about, core friends, like the people who I still love the shit out of to this day. Um, and it was and I think we all felt that way to a certain degree, that like kind of being kind of creative outcasts. Like now I think we would have been called theater kids probably. Like in high school they were more theater kids, but I think that how it's become not more accepted, I guess, but now that like there's more media about what it means to be a theater kid, and everyone can be cool now. I was kind of at the tail end of when someone like me would have been like knocked over in the hallway or bullied as a kid for being nerdy. Um, but yeah, so D&D was a big thing for me, which also meant that I like loved fantasy stuff, loved sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
Um, like you zoom out and back into when I was an undergrad and a graduate. Both all my degrees were actually in speculative fiction, dystopian science fiction, like really digging into that genre and like the political side, the anthropology of it, the sociology around all that, like, around that literature. And that started, I think, because I loved science fiction. I loved nerdy stuff. Um, like at the same time, I'm also a musician. I'm a drummer. Where depending on who you talk to, I'm a musician, which is a drummer joke. So yeah, we had when I was 12, 13, one of my friends who was also my dungeon master, who was one of the best dungeon masters I've ever had. He was also a music prodigy, and he decided that the whole party, essentially, as in the D&D party, everyone should have an instrument. So his parents, who were also quite well-regarded musicians in Boston, in the Boston Symphony Orchestra, got each of us like kind of a training instrument, like got a like a guitar for one of my friends, bass for another, and then I got drum pads, like electronic drum pads. So like and so not only were we nerds, we're also music nerds together. We listened to a lot of prog rock, early Dream Theater, Yes, Genesis, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
you're speaking to my, what's the word? Oh, I've forgotten the phrase now. You're a man after my own heart. I am like a big Genesis fan, big Yes fan.
oh
I
yeah.
was listening to Yes and Genesis earlier. Like people watching this would think we scripted that, but I promise you that was 100% off the cuff, authentic. Like we need to talk about Yes and Genesis after this podcast because I think
Oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of
Do a separate episode about
yeah, yeah,
about the best prog songs ever, and about how Dream Theater is one of the oddest like things in music, where like they're the most talented. They're so incredibly talented, but their songwriting is very like it's very mechanical
yeah,
sometimes. Like it's hard to like Dream Theater as much now because their music is just so mechanical, and it's all prowess, but it's like not quite campy enough to be as compelling as it could be. But it's also the songwriting is not like I don't know. I'm a bigger fan of Between the Buried and Me and Sleep Token and those bands that can bring like highly calculated riffs and such and musical prowess, but also have like a lot of like a lot of rage and vigor and emotion.
Yeah.
That's a side note. But yeah, so I guess it all boils down to the fact that I was a massive nerd. My mother used to say that I was the king of the nerds because I was the organizer usually of all my friends. It's
Yeah.
like, we're going to play D&D at this time and we're going to all gonna get together. And I loved being an organizer. Um, and it's fun to think it's fun to think. I don't usually think about like what that has done to me as a marketer because as I've gotten older, I'm like I'm like trudging towards 40. You lose a lot of that stuff as you get older. When you're an adult. I don't have a drum set in my home now. I live in an old apartment in Amsterdam where even if I had an electric drum set, like playing the pads would probably you could probably hear it half a block away through the old bones of the buildings. And I haven't played D&D since the first year of the pandemic because we had like I hadn't played in a long time and we had a D&D game going and it's just hard to keep that stuff going when you're an adult. And D&D takes a good D&D game takes one full day a week. Like you can't just come in for 1 or 2 hours. You start in the morning and you keep going
Yeah.
like all day. It's a marathon. Like each weekend is a marathon. It's hard to keep that going. Um,
Yeah.
and and as I've tried to grow as a marketer, as a strategist, all those things that we all strive to be in this industry, in this field, like I think I've slowly shed some of my more like nerdy aspects to try to make stuff work, to try to speak in a language that's potentially more acceptable towards more folks, and just hone the craft in a way that has not always felt as personal as I could make it. Which isn't to detract from the work I've done necessarily. It's like my work as an improviser, I'm able to hop into one voice or another and love the shit out of it and yes and myself into anything. But my more nerdy aspects, I like yeah, I haven't thought about this in a long time. I could talk forever about how improv
I think one
like
thing I would say, and this is
yeah.
obviously taking quite a generic, stance on it, but I think it's definitely made you adaptable. Because I mean, you talked on
Mm,
a previous call that we had about the importance of feeling the fun and how you used to work for a decentralized manufacturing company. Is that right?
yeah.
And you were talking about the disconnect between what the marketing team thought you should write about, which was 3D printing, versus where you knew the money was, and I guess where the fun was, if I'm understanding correctly. So like sheet metal and things like that, and you know, and maybe it's a bit of a, maybe I'm making quite a loose connection and clutching at straws here, but I always feel like when you've grown up as a kid playing games and writing stories, like I used to write a lot of short stories as a kid, and I had this ability to think outside the box and not just take things at face value, and to seek the fun, to want to tell stories that resonated with real people. I mean,
Mm.
did you see that sort of connection there, really? Like, from your um I guess, extracurricular endeavors, and how they inform your approach to writing and to telling stories.
I think that s- so the more nerdy content, like my more like on the content side, all the nerdy stuff I know a whole lot about, that doesn't play as much into it as my training as an improviser. Where when I talk about fun, like finding the fun in improv is stepping on stage, noticing something shiny, noticing um one of my favorite things to do is to walk on stage, make eye contact with whoever I'm on stage with. And the moment that I get and seeing the moment that there's some emotional response, saying, being curious and saying, ooh, how can I make them feel more of that thing? And
Yeah,
then a whole scene from nothing, from a blank page becomes there like the blank page of improv is a blank stage, and you can get so much out of just a look or someone moving a hand a certain way. Like, why'd you move your hand that way? Like that you follow the curiosity and you can have a lot of fun doing that. And I've applied that over the years to lots of other gigs. I worked for a company called Hubs, now Proto Labs, that was decentralized manufacturing. So they were a 3D printing network that became a larger scale connector between folks trying to make a prototype or big companies trying to also prototype, I guess, like engineers and inventors. and some of them needed injection molding, sheet metal fabrication, and I noticed in that time that like 3D printing was the kind of the sexier thing because it's just even from a content standpoint, watching an extruder just slowly create something, that's just really cool. Um, and when you're not in manufacturing and you're thinking about just sheet metal, it doesn't seem as fun, but I knew that if we were going to connect with as many potential clients or customers as possible, it's like we would have to speak the language of sheet metal is super duper fun. The people who work with sheet metal, they love it. The people who work with injection molding plastics, like they love it. Um, it's the same for an audience, like an improv audience. Like if you step on stage and you notice that the audience is responding to a certain thing and not another, you have the choice of digging your heels in and saying, I'm going to do the show that I want to do, or doing the show that's there, doing the show that the audience is manifesting with you. And when you go towards that, you discover fun that you didn't know was possible. You discover like emotional connections between types of situations and characters that you wouldn't normally think about. And it becomes much richer and much more fun. So like if you lead with curiosity and it's like what's fun for the reader, then you end up having a lot of fun too.
So I've got an example that ties in with that. One of my clients is a commercial catering equipment buying consortium. Now, even when I
That's
say,
awesome.
well, yeah, well, you say it's awesome. As I say those words, I'm almost boring myself. I'm hoping they're not watching this because they're a great client. They are really fun to work with. But when I first heard about it, I was like, and the proviso was because I work with a business partner on this. I'm like a contractor, like a subcontractor. And when she told me about it, I was kind of like, what could I possibly write about in that industry? Like that industry sounds so dry, technical, like a bunch of 50-odd-year-old guys in suits. And to a point, that's what it is. The but you know what? Actually interviewing their members about because their members I can't reveal the names of the members, obviously, but
Yeah.
what they do is like they'll manufacture so many different types of equipment. Like you've got like fucking warewashers and really niche things like that. Like
Yeah.
the more kind of common stuff like refrigeration for commercial kitchens, and then you've got like the distributors who sell that in, so they're almost like, for want of a better word, salespeople. Like they
Mm.
help sell this equipment in, and they'll stock it, they'll supply it, that kind of stuff. But most of the content that I have written for that client has just simply been tell me your story, but not just tell me your story as in your business's story. Tell me your story as a person, like what makes you tick. And
Hmm.
I did an interview with one of their members a few months ago, and he had worked on projects like the reconstruction of Wembley Stadium and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, like some of the biggest
Nice.
football stadiums in Europe. But he
Yeah.
also like just little tiny details that resonated with me. Like he really enjoys running, he enjoys like hanging out here playing football with his sons, and
Hmm.
just little things like that. If I was reading that as a fellow member of this consortium, because the whole idea of these articles is they're to encourage business within the community, uh,
Hmm.
whilst also encouraging interaction from outside as well. But if I was a member of that community and I read that and I found out a little bit more about that person as well as that businessman, I'd think, oh, you know what? He seems like a really good guy. I'd really want to get to know more about him. So, that's the power of authenticity and really going one step beyond, because for that particular client, I could have just said, okay, we're just going to bang on about how great they are. We're going to write the odd press release. We're going to write about trends affecting the industry, which I still do sometimes, but I find it all really boring. Like if I want to find out more, I'm going to talk to the people on the ground. Um,
Yeah.
it saves me a job, let's be honest. I don't have to then go out and research stuff for 5 or 6 hours. I can just ask them questions and dig into it that way. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that ties in with what you said. My answer's that long that I don't actually remember what I was even referring to. But yeah, the power of authenticity. Let's go with that.
And the power of authenticity and the power of like individual authenticity and what that actually means. Like there's again, I'm going to talk about improv because it's because I super duper love it. There's a difference between there's a difference between trying to play an emotion and trying to feel an emotion. and this is just an acting thing, right? Like, I mean, you can see right through someone who's trying to play an emotion but not really feeling it. And it's not the hardest. It's not like acting is a very challenging thing, but feeling stuff, at least at the base levels, not like we all do it. And so when you cut out the stuff around like, oh, I'm acting, so I have to feel this a certain way, I have to portray a certain way. Just feeling it is not as hard, and you get a much more interesting story from that. Same thing as like you like if you're like authenticity as a concept as a concept of this has to sound authentic, but it's not going to sound authentic unless it sounds like just another person. So like trying to write it conversationally is the same thing as writing conversationally, right? We write conversationally as if you're talking, like talking about it, but there's like a manufactured conversational versus just what it sounds like to talk to a person who works in a place. And those are different things.
And I like the little play on words there. I don't know if that was intentional, because
Not at all.
we talked about manufacturing earlier, and you said manufactured. I love that.
That's
Even
a
if
that's
an accidental pun.
it's a callback.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
But it's
callback.
so true. Like, I mean, um, and that applies to life as well. And that's something we are going to talk a little bit more about. Where people can find the fun and where people can find hope in
Yeah.
life. But it's like if I'm networking with people on LinkedIn, like I hate small talk. I think that's why we connected so well, really, from the get go. And we started talking on LinkedIn, and we had a couple of calls after that. It's kind of like I'm never gonna. I mean, I can if you want me to, but I will never sit here and say to you, "How are you doing? How's your day going?" Like honestly, I mean, I might ask that occasionally in passing, but it's not gonna cut through really and get to the bottom of how you're actually doing or what you actually want out of life.
Yeah.
And even if you just simply said to me, I don't know, that would be fine as well. Because I don't think I know most of the time. But
Wouldn't
yeah,
it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if every time we all just as people asked, "How are you doing?" and we'd be okay hearing the answer, not well.
yeah,
Like
100%.
we're hoping that we ask, "How you doing?" Oh, fine. Then time just moves past us.
I
The
literally
how
said this exact thing. I said this exact thing to someone the other day. Like,
it'd
why
be
do people ask questions like that? It's like I've had it before where, and this happens to me quite a lot, and I don't know if this happens to you. And this kind of does tie in a little bit with the podcast title, and I guess the lack of hope you feel sometimes. But when you're at a networking event and someone will talk to you and they'll be like, oh, yeah, how's business going? And then you'll start talking to them and you can just see their eyes drift away and they start looking around the room. It's like, well, don't fucking ask me. If you don't want to know, don't fucking ask me then. If you're really not that bothered, if you just want me to go, yeah, good, how are things with you? Like to me, that's not a conversation. I might as well not talk than say something like that. I just don't do it. I'm not, I don't toe the party line in that way because I just find it very sterile and boring. Like one of my old bosses used to ask me, how was your weekend? He'd like have us all on the call and he'd say, how was everyone's weekend? And you just knew, just from looking in his eyes, he just didn't give a fuck. Like he wasn't remotely interested in how your weekend was. And I'm like, well,
so did
I
you
just won't ask. If I don't care, I just will not ask. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah,
There's also like again, gonna talk about improv. Like some of the best shows I've ever seen are silent shows, are shows where there doesn't have to be a lot of stuff happening. And if you've seen me for the past 30 odd minutes, like I like talking, but I also love moments of silence where you realize you don't need words. You can just exist in that space and you'll fill in the emotions. You'll fill in so much that sometimes it's nice just to share a silent moment with someone, or sometimes it's nice like if we're tying in a link that I just had this thought where we're constantly trying to cut through the noise, but one way to cut through the noise is just to be silent. Like silence speaks so loudly. Silence is such a
silence speaks
strong
volumes. Yeah, yeah.
like silence is such a strong place to be, where and it also is a nice reminder to stop and think sometimes. Like if you're on LinkedIn and someone says something incendiary and you want to join the conversation, most of the time the person who's posted something incendiary, they don't actually want to have a conversation. They want to spark outrage and then come out on top of that conflict. Why play that game when you can just think about something, realize, oh, you don't need to wade into this discourse if you're not if that you're going to add to the noise as opposed to being strong and silent.
One of the good things about this podcast and one of the therapeutic things about starting this podcast for me was like I've always been in, and I think you and I are kind of similar in this sense, but I've always been a very out there kind of guy. I've always been very extroverted. And to be honest, when I would be in meetings, I would talk about three times more than I would listen. But doing this podcast has allowed me to just shut up and listen for a little bit and almost it's my version of silence. Like you're talking, but my silence is like I find that so therapeutic because I can learn so much from other people. And also tying in with the point you just made, I love classical music for that reason. Like I wouldn't
Mm.
say that I don't know the ins and outs of it. And to be honest with you, there's a limit to how much I can listen to in one go before I get bored and think, okay, I need lyrics again. But to a point, I really like it because when a song is lyricless, it allows you to create your own interpretation of it and relate that back to your experience so it can mean whatever you want it to mean. The problem that I have with literature, movies, and music that kind of overdoes the message is it you do get to a point where you think, am I almost relaying this message to myself and taking what I want from it, or am I simply listening to someone else talk about their life? Now, I don't mind the latter, but again, there's a limit to how much of that I can do as well. Like I think of, for example, Double Fantasy, John Lennon's last album.
Mm.
That is literally just a fucking biography of him and Yoko. Like that is just talking about them and their life. It's talking about him being a wealthy house husband. Like most people don't really give a shit about that because that just is not relatable to most people's experiences at all.
No.
So like, that's where I think there's something to be said for I'm trying to think of different forms of art that encourage your own kind of interpretation, but lyricless songs, you'd say like abstract art is another good one. Like if I look at this thing behind me, I really like all forms of abstract art, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm a big Rothko fan. I discovered Rothko via like a documentary about Mark Rothko, and the narrator who was doing the documentary had said that they had wandered into a museum, a modern art museum, and they had stepped into like a Rothko room and just they were transported. They would look at a Rothko and they would just see like limitless space, and they would see depth um and emotion. There's just so much you could see in a Rothko. And so I, of course, like those before I knew Rothko at all. And so every time I see a Rothko, I'm influenced by like that really like heavy interpretation of it. But I love but I love certain modern contemporary art when I you can just stare at it and you can let whatever story is attaching to you to your emotional journey. Like it's just so much fun to interpret and just to wonder and not know too. The less you know, the better, because you get to just exist in that place of wonder and curiosity.
yeah, exactly. I mean, well, that's why some of my favorite films kind of, well, I don't know if this is a good example, but it's an example that springs to mind straight away. In fact, there are two. I wouldn't say that Only God Forgives is up there with my favorite films, but I think it's a very good film, and I think it's by the same director as the guy who directed Drive, and both movies have got Ryan Gosling in them. I don't know if
Oh
you've
yeah.
seen either movie. Have you seen Drive before?
Drive, yes. The other one, no.
Drive is a good example of how, like, you can. Do you know in your mind you go away asking so many questions about Ryan Gosling's character? Like, where did he come from? What's his
Oh
name? I
yeah.
don't think they reveal his name in the movie. Like, what's he doing there? Like, kind of thing. There's so many questions unanswered, and I know people who don't like the movie for that reason because there's not much dialogue, because there isn't much of a backstory. But I think that's beautiful in a way. I really do. I think that look, it covers the nitty gritty of it, right? So I don't want to ruin it for anyone who's not seen it, but all the core parts
Spoilers.
a lot of coverage, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty much, and then a lot of people die. He doesn't die, so I'm going to ruin that for everyone. His character does not die, nearly does. But like
And you can't really kill off Ryan Gosling to it's kind of I
well, there
believe that
was
would
a
be in his
movie where he
contract.
did. There was a movie he died really early in, and it was the one with Bradley Cooper in Place Beyond the Pines,
Oh yeah.
which is also a great movie. But yeah, I'm sounding like a Ryan Gosling fanboy at the moment, but that movie Drive is so good because there's so much emphasis on the cinematography, the music, the the effects, I guess and there is a character arc in a way. I know he doesn't say an awful lot, but there is really. I mean, he actually does open
Hmm.
up more as the film goes on, and you start to see different facets of his personality rather than him simply being kind of a reclusive weirdo, who preys on
Yeah.
people. which you kind of do think at the start. But I really like that movie as an example of how we're not being made to think a certain way or feel a certain way, which every time I log on to LinkedIn, that's all that happens. It just gets thrown in my fucking face. And by the way, if I see one more ad for fucking motion AI, honestly, I'm throw it out the window. I went on their
Oh,
website once, right, to find out how it could make me more efficient, and I have been getting peppered with adverts since then. And you know what they do? They have these videos of people, and it's almost like it agitates me because it's actually some of it quite true of my experiences. But it's like, how do you know? How do you know this about me? It's like people who are
they know
like
everything.
waking up later in the morning, like people who aren't getting shit done and they're tired and they're eating badly and they're not exercising and stuff, which like I wouldn't say is entirely true of my experience, but bits of it are. And I'm like,
Mm.
you're trying to piss me off, so I download this, and I'm not going to do it because it's quite expensive. I looked into it, and it asks for your money up front. I was like, no, fuck that. But yeah, all I get is these adverts now, and you like we'll just segue into that as a question, I guess, is like,
Yeah.
do you think that part of the reason people are losing hope is the fact that we're all being told what we should think and feel on a daily basis, like everywhere we go?
This is a really good question, but this is now off record. I left rice to soak, and I need to drain it. Would you give me just like we can
Listen,
timestamp
we're
this?
keeping that in because that's amazing. But I'm gonna pause the recording right there.
Yeah. Uh,
It's in part two. We're in part two of the podcast now. We're with Isaac. We're cooking and talking. You've got quite a neat analogy that you want to bring up,
um,
I think.
analogy.
Was
Oh,
it an analogy or was it a comparison? I can't remember.
uh, it was just a non sequitur, to be honest with you. I'm talking about so at the beginning. So I timed out this episode to be done when I was around the time where my rice and my curry were done soaking and cooking respectively. I did not do this properly. So I've got this big thing of rice that's been soaking for an hour. I got the rice recipe from Dishoom, which is the which is a restaurant in London, I think. Yeah, it's in
Right?
London.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it has other other branches, but it's a restaurant that I really really dig. And my sister who lives in London got us a cookbook for the Dishoom, and we figured out how to make biryani, how to make different curries. But the thing that has stuck with me is the perfect rice recipe. You first you have to take basmati rice. You rinse it a bunch of times and get all the starch out with your fingers. Then you soak it for an hour. Then you cook it for a total of 4 minutes 20 seconds, which is funny in its own right. Drain it, put it back in the pot with like a small fistful of butter if you're wild. Um, Put foil over that, cook it like cinch it real tight, cook it for a minute on high heat so it just like creates a pressure cooker. Turn off the heat and then wait half an hour, and the rice is fluffy. Each grain has its own character. It is just tremendous. So that's what I'm doing right now as we're talking.
Don't think I've ever done a podcast where someone has given cooking tips before. So this could be a new avenue for me. I think it's something I can branch out into. It's very useful. I mean, I can't say I would ever have thought to do that, to be honest. So that is
It's like it's like because usually with rice you just make rice. But when I discovered this recipe, it was like a very basic food I love. Actually, you can do it in a really complicated manner where something so simple is actually so much more uh rewarding when you put too much effort into making something that you could also probably make simpler and it would be almost as good. The quality difference you will notice, like if you make rice like this, you'll notice the quality difference, but will you do it every time? Maybe not. But each time you do it this way, you'll feel really like satisfied with it because it's
you could
when you
you know what that could be like the rice and how you've cooked it, or the whole process behind cooking it could almost be, I guess, a metaphor for working with a human writer versus AI. You
exactly
you might not always work with a
exactly
human, but when you do, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad that you took the time. The
Yeah.
question that you asked about hope in this age where like where everything is so commodified, where you have a thought and maybe you vocalize that thought near your phone, and all of a sudden you're getting ads you're getting ads about this thing, and it's just and if you're unemployed, like I'm self-employed on the flip side, also like partially unemployed. I'm on LinkedIn a lot to find connections and to look for work. And LinkedIn is now just it's its own nightmare scape of people trying to break through the noise but contribute to it at the same time. And I feel for everybody, I really do. But we're all locked in this really hopeless feeling battle where we're just trying to get noticed. And sometimes but what gives me hope is that there's still like the act of creating, that's still there. AI might take that from us on an industrial level to a point, but there's really no substitute for creating something, for taking the time to fuck around with an idea, then to get a blank sheet of paper and fuck around with that, and then to like sit in a room with people and think, why is this not working? And then someone has a light bulb moment and that doesn't even work, but like but just getting through that process is so much fun and so rewarding that even if most of us get that taken away from us, it's not like it's not there anymore. And I think that more people are gonna gravitate towards doing stuff for themselves, and more people are gonna want to work, and get more people are gonna get bored with like just the non-craft elements of AI and miss that thing of just messing around with an idea of putting their hand in a pot of in like a in a big bowl of rice and sifting around for the starch, like those weird tactile processes in the creative in the creative cycle. Those mean so much, and you get so much from them that we'll miss them when they're gone. And that gives me hope because that still exists. Like we're not going to lose that. We're not going to lose those things. We might lose them getting paid for them maybe for a while, but they still are there. We still want that stuff.
Yeah, and one point I'm gonna make is like, I think I've said this on a few podcasts before, and I've certainly said it on LinkedIn before, is that, we have to remember AI is essentially an aggregation mostly of human written content. So it's literally copying what humans have written and presenting it as automated information. Well, it's not automated information. Nothing is automated. Like most of that information is man-made, right? So we have to remember that, and also the ability to be discerning. I think discerning is a really important word here. Like, be people, that's what people pay for. The art of discernment is like, picking a piece of information, or taking a piece of information and deciding whether you want to speak it out loud or whether you want to write it or whether you want to like with what you're doing there, like all of the little details that matter one way or another. It's either going to make a fucking horrible meal or a really good meal. Like, one or two missteps can be catastrophic. And it's the same with using AI. It's the same with anything. Like, a lot of people actually don't know how to use AI. That's why I'm not particularly worried about it, because the sorts of people who know how to use it correctly, and I don't even include myself in this, even though I use it quite a lot, but the people who would know how to use it on an intimate level to the point where it could exceed anything that you or I would ever be capable of doing, even with our own intuition. The people who know how to do that stuff, if they exist, would be in Silicon Valley. Like they're not everyday business owners. They're not people who just go, oh yeah, I'll just put a prompt in on Claude and that'll give me everything I want. It's like, yeah, but your prompt is probably shit. Like it's probably really bad. So, to get even the same level of output, and this is not me being arrogant, this is just a fact, to get the same level of output as a professional writer like you or me, you would have to spend most of the day with the bot to refine what it gave you, because it couldn't write in our specific voice. And the reason why so many mediocre writers and creators out there are being replaced is because they write like everybody else. It's literally the same. So obviously they're going to get replaced. But if you sit down with someone, and I know I've said this a few times, but it's just something that you said that really resonated with me. If you sit down with someone and find the fun, find the what, find the why, and present it in your own way with your own lexis and your own sentence structures that only you are capable of through all the books that, it's like, no two people have ever read the same books, right? So no two people have the same experiences. Everybody is different. And so like that will always shine through. And if you're a good thinker, because most good writers are good thinkers, if you're a good thinker and you have your own unique life experiences, there's just no way AI can ever replicate that or replace it.
I think that we're at an inflection point where we say that a lot, and I completely agree with that. But I think that like the dystopian scholar in me knows that no matter how much we believe that, we also have to make sure that the powers that be respect that, because there's only so much we can do to like there's only so much that we as individuals can do. The most powerful people will sway government societal discourse in a way that is just like unbelievably scary. We can influence our own circles and such, and we can continue to push the idea that this art form matters, and we can hope that bigger players like make the right decision. Like I think that our responsibility as writers and creators is to recognize is to recognize the influence we can have, which is I'm always alarmed when people make their own GPTs, like will farm out their thoughts like for the GP like into a clone of themselves, because it's telling the industry, as it were, that's a good option, which we all need. We all have mortgages or rent, so it's like anything to help make us like anything to not go bankrupt, sure. But I just hope that we as writers and thinkers don't do that too much, because then we're going to make the machine more powerful. And like and it's also, yeah, it's down to us to continue to enjoy the art as we do it, and enjoy it for what it is, and not and like because like so here okay, I figured it out. The idea, like we say that the AI will never be able to do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
We need to operate in a world in which we think it can absolutely do that. I think that we have to live in a world where we assume that at one point real soon the AI can do exactly what we do to the same emotional degree. I think that's not but that's not a doom and gloom kind of sentiment. That's like that is a choice of valuing your own contribution rather than living in a potential fantasy where it's like, oh no, by definition, I'll always be useful. Like like it's a choice to have the discipline and the creativity and the imagination and the verve for that art, rather than just say, oh, it'll never get there. Because if it does, then what we're going to be advocating for is not that we can do better, but that the art's worth preserving in its human form.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've always said is, you know, like AI, by the way, when you actually read into it, what artificial intelligence is. I mean, it's existed in some form for a lot longer than we think, many years, decades, right? And people were resistant to lots of things, in their inception, right? So, like, if you think back through time, I mean, computers, people were resistant to that, and now look at the benefit of a computer we would never have met if it wasn't for a computer, like, and all kinds of
Acceptable.
things like videotapes, DVDs, CDs. Like, I mean, I'm and I'm just throwing examples out there that don't necessarily correlate with what AI is today. I know AI is a totally different kettle of fish, but like this whole resistance to unfamiliarity has happened throughout time. But and the human race has never died as a result of any of this. So I think it's a case of working with it and actually using AI to speed things up. So for me, like if I didn't actually do it for this, but in a weird way I did. So we had the call before this podcast, right? So like obviously a lot of people don't know this, but when I do podcasts with guests, I will have an introductory call with them to discuss ideas and what we can talk about, and I'll record the calls, right? So then I had the transcript of our conversation, and we went off on loads of tangents, like more than we have today. So that gives you an idea. But
It's
basically,
alarming given what we do.
yeah, exactly. And how's the rice looking, by the way?
This is the part.
God, you got tinfoil on it and everything. That's a real meticulous process.
There's gonna be some ASMR for you now.
Oh
My
yeah.
uh, podcast guest hands. Gonna be making a seal to trap heat inside. Make that nice and cozy.
Have we accidentally stumbled upon an amazing idea? You know, like that first we feast with the hot wings. Do you know that one where they basically put the wings in front of a celebrity and they eat it, and then they're like
Oh, no.
sweating buckets while it like could I do something similar like a cooking podcast where the guest is cooking and they're cooking up a storm both in and out of the kitchen?
I mean, I like the idea. Like, if anyone has made it this far, they're going to see an amazing technique for making rice, which now it's like
Hey, I'm glad. Hey, by the way, I'm glad you're doing that on the hob and not in the microwave. Because if you had tin foil in the microwave, that would be quite well, it would be quite an amusing podcast, but also potentially quite dangerous. Isaac burns his flat down.
I mean, that would be much more viral, right? I feel like that would be
Yeah,
going viral.
yeah, 100%. But no,
Like,
what was I saying? I've forgotten what I
like
was saying there. But yeah, no, it's just about yeah, I guess it's just about working with it and knowing that it's here to stay, right? It is here to stay. By the way, a lot of other things have been here to stay for a long time. I mean, mobile phones now, you could argue in some ways they're really bad, but in some ways they're really good for us. It depends on your perspective, right? But like computers are here to stay, internet's here to stay, electric cars are here to stay. Automation in multiple forms is here to stay. I'm going to be honest, it's made my life easier in a lot of ways. So I try and look at the positives as well as the negatives behind it. And as you say, if we can get on board with that while still retaining our ingenuity. Ingenuity can never go away. And that is a fucking prerequisite really for being a copywriter. Like you cannot fall victim to this whole idea of, oh well, I'll just get, like I was telling you about motion. You can't have AI doing everything for you.
no.
Your brain exists for a reason, right? But as long as you're on board with AI and you can figure out a use for it, I think, as you say, that's the perfect middle ground if there is one.
Yeah, but also do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice your own joy. Like we as writers are, we're watching our we're watching our like income dwindle. We're watching people prioritize like AI content and AI tools over like over the human element of all that. Like so it is scary, and it does sometimes feel like we're rushing to use these tools. I'm back, by the way. I'm back in my normal
It's going
environment.
to be part
Uh,
three. When I timestamp it, I'll call this part three.
of the longest, weirdest podcast ever.
Yeah.
Um, like, oh man, oh yeah, this is
The cat makes an appearance.
this is the like I've said this before that if you talk to AI a lot, you get it's almost too affirmative. Like sometimes your thoughts shouldn't be spoken back at you. Your thoughts should just drift away like into the ether, because then otherwise you like AI. I think AI contributes to something called spiritual materialism, where like if you have where you are very precious about your thoughts and you get stuck on and each thought becomes bigger and heavier and more important, and you become materialistic about all the things you think, and your story becomes like you become every thought becomes too heavy, right? And you get and if you're and each thing becomes so much of an analysis.
that you get stuck. You get materialistic about just being on this planet. And so I think that the best thing you can do is if you're going to if you have a thought and you want to give it to AI, tell it to your cat first, or just tell it to no one first. And if that thought like dwindles, then that's fine too. It's fine for things like it's fine for not everything to be important. It's fine for not everything to be affirmed. Like
Yeah.
AI is the knowledge we can get from it, depending on how you classify knowledge, and the insight is so fast and so furiously like streamlined and efficient that we're going to get addicted to that feeling. We're going to get addicted to you have a notion, you have a thought. It has to be able to become content now. It has to be able to be something engaging now or be like affirmed by something where like if you if you have an idea, tell it to your cat, nothing happens. If that idea disappears, the world doesn't stop. If the idea is good, it'll come back.
Well,
Or
yeah, it's
maybe
like, copywriters, going back to the point about cats, maybe copywriters have got nine lives as well, but not literal lives, like nine hypothetical lives or like, nine life cycles. I don't know. But yeah, because I feel like it's funny actually, because I feel like I've been retired a few times, like by not by myself, but by other people, where it's like, oh,
yeah.
what do you think about AI right now, Neil? Do you think it's going to put you out of work? And then people have basically written me off. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've actually got more clients than when ChatGPT was first released. So there you go.
Yeah.
Um, but why do you think so many marketers, and particularly self-employed marketers, are losing hope right now? I mean, obviously we've touched on this a little bit, but like let's just run through the main reasons. Why do you think there's this doom and gloom, to quote something you said earlier?
You sent me this question before, and I thought about it a little bit more, and I'd be curious to know how many marketers and people in our rough field, like how many of them actually feel like actually are losing hope versus the people in our who are algorithmically linked to us.
Yeah.
And so when I answer this, I'm speaking for the people in my orbit and the people I've seen. Like I wouldn't be able to speak to marketers, any other marketers. But in my experience now, it's just seeing work disappear. It's just seeing it's it's feeling obsolete so fast and feeling so undervalued. Like already creatives in every capacity have been undervalued by society forever. You like name any creative profession or thing and someone has called it arts and crafts or someone has like without realizing that they probably spend hours watching TV that's been crafted by a bunch of craftspeople and artists. Like it's already so hard to be a creative, and now seeing that uh, AI can do it so fast and that there is so much wonder towards it. Like a year ago, I was in my last job, they someone used AI to make a song, a fine song, and but I was taken aback by like I would have loved it so much more if someone had written the song and gotten someone in the company who there's a bunch of guitarists in the company to spend an hour of their time like figuring out a chord progression. It would have sounded less perfect. It would have been maybe shittier in a way, less polished, but it would have been theirs. It would have been like, and we would have felt wonder at like the effort they took to do that and the fun of the performance and but instead we were marveling at this machine made thing. Like we're marveling that it's possible. But how often do people marvel at any creative when when they create something? Like how often do you marvel at the process as it and so I think that that's all that together is causing a lot of marketers who are also like a ton of marketers are also creatives. Probably like you and I are both literature people. Like a lot of marketers maybe didn't set out to be marketers. Some of them did, but also what the way that they see marketing is also incredibly creative. And so now you're seeing like all the wonder that we feel for our craft and what we do, and all the wonder that we want to give to each other just dissipating. And that can be so hard, and that you lose so much hope that way. And it also takes so much energy to be hopeful when you're seeing so much work dissipate, when you're seeing the hardest thing is when you see everyone around you say, use AI or be left behind. Whether or not that's true is not really the point. The having your fellow people just say, like, do this or be left behind, like, that just sucks. That's awful to see, because there's so many layers of disregard for like for one another, and for the curiosity that we should have towards one another, and our work, and our passions and such. And it's like we're complicit in AI's takeover in that way. And all those things can make you feel like it's just so much doom and gloom. And it's hard
Yeah.
to extract yourself from that.
And I really encourage the sharing of different perspectives on this as well. And I'm saying different because my perspective was different in the past. Like I was very much on that. I was one of those people who said use AI or get left behind. Like, but in a way of like saying, come on, like I'm looking out for you. I don't want you to. But in a way, it probably was a little bit harsh the way I was saying it as well, in the sense of like I was getting bored of people who were basically saying, "I'll never ever use it." I'm like, well,
Mm.
you can't shut your mind off to that possibility either.
No, of course not either.
Obviously, then I didn't articulate it in the most diplomatic way at that time. This was about 2 years ago. So actually, what you're saying there is I mean, and so much of what you said, honestly, we could do like 4 or 5 hours of a podcast dissecting the things that you say, because there's so much insight behind them, and you've given me some really kind of eloquent responses, which has been great. But I'm thinking of like, the this whole idea of, and I think we talked about it. I can't remember if this was off air or not, but like, Phil Collins playing a duff note when he played live
Mm.
and things like that. And,
That
and
happened today. It feels like we did that in the call
yeah,
before. That
true,
happened like
true
an hour
perfection
ago.
has to be imperfect, to quote a song by Oasis. I'm not sure if you would have heard of them, but they're an English band. But you think, again, I'm going to go back to the Beatles. What did you say?
Liam or Noam, do you have an opinion?
Oh God, yeah. Let's not go there.
That's a separate podcast. That's
Yeah, I'm
that.
not. I mean, I used to. Well, I'll tell you. I used to like Oasis. I'm not huge fans of them now. I just find the pair of them so juvenile and obnoxious. But then a lot of musicians are, aren't they? But speaking of the Beatles again, if you think about the White Album and you think of Revolution Number Nine, don't know if you've ever heard Revolution Number Nine, but can you
Yeah, of
imagine
course.
giving AI a prompt to come up with something like that? Can you imagine saying to AI, here's what I want it to sound like? I mean, where would you even begin with something like that? Again, if we go back to abstract art, um, there was actually a guy, this wouldn't be abstract art, I don't think, but a guy called Mark Chagall, who's, is it Chagall or Chagall? I called him Chagall. That's probably the Brit in me. But basically, I was in,
Chagall, I think.
yeah, I was in Vienna. Uh, at the oh my God, what is the fucking museum called there? The Albertina, I think it's called. I think it's the Albertina Museum, and it's got a huge section on abstract art and modern art, things like that. It's on the second floor. I think it's on the second floor. I'm not really being very descriptive here, but basically, it had a whole exhibition for this guy, Mark Chagall, and I
Mm.
looked at some of his stuff, and if no one's heard of him before, honestly, check his stuff out. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a huge art connoisseur, because sometimes I'm a bit like Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where I'm just staring at a painting and I'm sort of wondering what I should, what I should be deducing from this painting, and like, am I missing the point here? I don't really get it. And then eventually, the closer, like, when it pans in on his face and it zooms in, and it's literally just like a smudge of paint, like that's eventually all you see the more you look at it, which is, I know, a very kind of narrow-minded way of looking at it. But to be honest, this blew my mind, some of his stuff that I saw. Like, he was incredible. I'm just looking at some of his stuff now. So I remember seeing things like White Crucifixion, Paris Through the Window, stuff like that. And I just can't imagine AI coming up with stuff like that. Like, what how would you even, so the thing is, what you got to remember is somebody's got to put that in as a brief. So presumably, if someone's even had the foresight to think of an idea like that, then they probably could have a good bash at it themselves, couldn't they? I'm not saying they'd necessarily be able to execute it like a Picasso or a Marc Chagall or a Monet or whatever.
Yeah.
Totally
Well,
different
so
types of art there. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's kind of bizarre to even imagine AI coming up with something like that.
and
So
it's also sort of sad. Like it's also it from like I think that after it hasn't even been that long since like ChatGPT's been around. Like it's like the vortex of emotions and like opinions on it have been so furious and wild, and it's not even been that long. And I'm mostly when we talk about hope, I'm hopeful because I've come out the other end of a lot of just feelings about it, feeling a bit more heartbroken than anything else. Like the hope comes from like the hope comes from wanting to see more people do more creative things and wanting to see more people like suck through their potential and it's just because it's been heartbreaking to see so many potential creative people skip the part that's the most fun. Like when I think back about when I first learned the drums, I sucked. There are moments now where I play and I'm like and I fuck up a solo or something, and there is nothing in the world that will ever replace for a person, for the black boxes in LLM, I have no idea. But there's nothing that will replace being in a practice room and just sucking, especially being with a group of people that you love and sucking. This goes for
it's saying to
improv.
AI, imagine putting a thing into AI saying, I need you to pretend that you suck at this. I mean, maybe it could, I don't know, but imagine if you
But
said,
it wouldn't, but the thing is, it wouldn't know what the emotional aspect of that is so
Yeah, yeah.
important. The emotional aspect of sucking because it's fun. Like the first, if you ever see an improv 101, the first time people do improv, it is one of the coolest things you'll ever see because it's people who have taken 8 weeks to learn something and they get on stage and they know the bare bones of how it works. And you're seeing people take crazy risks together and just loving that they're together doing it, that they are like they're just discovering so much in that process, and the show itself won't ever really be a good show. It's not going to be like a polished, amazing comedy show, but in the room together with those people who are discovering stuff, like when something funny happens, it is beautiful, beautiful and cathartic because it's people discovering the how to be funny in the moment with you. It's so cool. Like I think a lot about Dave Grohl, the drummer for Foo Fighters and previously Nirvana, and he learned drums by just getting some big thick drumsticks, like 5 Bs, I think, the biggest drumsticks he could, and just hitting pillows until he got fast. And then he played with Nirvana, and Nirvana before they were Nirvana, they were just a garage band, and they must have sounded terrible, but they had such an emotional like they were so emotionally attached to what they were doing. They had to do what they were doing. They love what they were doing. Like and Kurt Cobain was like so intensely troubled for, and there's like, I don't know everything that went on in his head, but I believe that he like had to be on that stage playing that music. And the only way you get there is by getting together with people and just being really bad at it until you are really good at it. And when you're really good at it, all the badness will have contributed to your artistic voice at that point. Like you'll always be paying honor to the person you were when you were still bad at that thing. And you'll still and that which will make it accessible, which will make it like emotional, which will make it experiential, which is something that that's one thing AI can't do, can't experience stuff.
yeah, I
And
was,
like
yeah.
And that's a big part of it, where whether or not the output is going to be better than what we can do, to me is not as important as experiencing the thing itself. Like back to the idea of of folks in power and people who control the purse strings of the world, like there's going to be a choice to be made of whether or not of how much harder they want to make the accessibility of creating stuff because there's nothing like it. And the world is better for when more people are making stuff. And if we're all discouraged from that, because AI can just do it, then you're robbing the world of so many creative minds that like and so many friendships and connections and like and cool experiences because you could just make it you could just prompt it and it'll do it.
Yeah, and it kind of it takes away from, again, just going back to what you just said there, the process, which is not even necessarily a linear A to Z process. It's like A to B, back to A and a half, back to B and a half, back to B, and then up to C and a half, and then all of a sudden it's like what people think progress looks like versus what it actually looks like. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think from what you're saying there, like AI versus the human experience. Well, the human experience involves a lot more patience, a lot more pragmatism, and a lot more bigger picture thinking. So actually seeing the potential in somebody when they're at a certain point without being
Yeah.
discouraging to them, but it's kind of like you can see where they could go. It's almost like imagining what it could be. And even if it doesn't necessarily fulfill that imagination, it's like, okay, how can we help this person get from that point to that? So there's an element of empathy involved, not just like, you know, going back to the musical example, like if someone has got, like, think of like someone like Janis Joplin. I mean, nowadays, can you imagine Janis Joplin's voice being ran through auto tune? Like it would suck. It would sound
Be
terrible.
terrible.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, we've got like only a few more questions left. I think we've covered a lot of ground anyway. And just so I know, actually, what's the name of our third guest that we've got here?
His name is Booze, and I know that that's kind of a weird name to give a cat or to give another living creature, but my partner and I are big into wine and into living life well. So it's a good name for him. Also, he's a belligerent little man. He wakes us up at 6 a.m. every day. He yells a lot. He scratches and bites like the best of them, but he's the cuddliest little fucker in the world.
Yeah, he looks like a cuddly little fucker. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna spend
I
the rest of
think
his time like just in front of me trying to attack my face.
Well, I think he'll be responsible for around 50 to 60% of the views, comments, shares, likes, engagement. Like I think he'll be responsible
Yep.
for the
Yep.
majority.
Nothing I say matters. It's up to it's up to this little guy.
Yeah, I think he concurs with most of what you say. Some things he disagrees with, but we can maybe talk about that after. But
I mean, he like the what I love about cats is I think that cats think that we're idiots. I think that cats see people as big dumb cats, and they wonder
they're not
why
wrong.
we're like they just look at us like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Why are they not just like they're wasting so much time? They're so inefficient. Why don't they just sit down and nap and hunt and grow fur? Like he thinks I'm such a moron, and I
I
love
suppose
that.
to your point, certainly the napping part I've got down to a T. Not so much hunting, maybe 2,000 years ago. But yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on was and you've touched on a few of these things already, but the social faux pas that you're seeing, and how I've actually been guilty of one or two of them myself, as I said before, with the whole AI stuff. But what are some of the sort of faux pas you're seeing in the marketing industry, and I guess more broadly? I know you've talked before about like people trying to dunk on each other, and I think this is well documented that LinkedIn is rife for that. But yeah, I mean, what
Yeah.
are some of the faux pas you've seen that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, I think that was that's the main one where like I feel like I see a lot of people trying to disprove one another or trying to outplay each other. It's becoming more like Facebook circa however many years ago, where it's not really a faux pas. It's just not the way you would normally conduct yourself in a workplace or on a job board. And however the algorithm on LinkedIn works, I mean it's also moving towards outrage, I'm pretty sure. And so we're just like sort of spending a lot of time commenting on each other's stuff. But also we're commenting and we're posting for reach and for work. And so it doesn't feel as much like a conversation. It feels like, will my insightful comment on this person's post get someone to look at my portfolio? And so it's this weird like parasocial relationship we have with each other, but also employers. So it's less of a faux pas and more just an odd behavior that we're all kind of doing with each other. The one that gets me is also like telling people to get on a certain train or you'll be left behind. Like while I think that the intention is usually good, and I believe that yours was as well. I mean, you said like I don't think anyone's being like, hey marketer, hey marketers, bye.
Yeah.
Like not
Yeah, I'm
not
on this
really.
train. I'm leaving you behind. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we want each other to succeed, I would think, but just the way that we say it sometimes can feel very like can feel a little bit self-serving, a little bit holier than thou. But I don't even necessarily think that it's us doing it. I do think that it's the medium that forces us to write a certain way, to act a certain way. And when you're just in a conversation with someone and you're talking about AI stuff and the way people talk about it on LinkedIn, say, like that conversation doesn't really have legs because you realize that there's no audience. You realize that there's no one's trying to like uh he's trying to attack me. That no one's trying to like that no one's trying to fight. We all kind of agree. We all kind of agree when we're just as people together. And and yeah, like I just sometimes like, and that's why I don't engage as much or I don't post as much, which is maybe an excuse too, but but it because it doesn't feel as much like we're sharing insight as much as we're trying to like as much as we're trying to game a system or we're trying to like uh outplay each other.
Think we're running out of nuance, really. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
We are running out of nuance, and the world's a very well. People are trying to make it black and white. It's like, well, how can we? When you really think about the world, and this is me getting really deep now, really deep. And it depends on not to. I don't want to. I don't want any religious people to feel disillusioned with what I'm about to say. I'm not. I'm not really. I'm actually agnostic, which one of my friends called atheism without balls, which is probably true. But basically, if you think about how we're even here in the first place, like whatever school of thought you follow, whether you believe it was, the world was made by a god or a deity or whatever, or it's all just an accident. It was a result of an explosion. Fine, but like how can we try to make sense of even that? And we're trying to make something as trivial as fucking AI, you know, try and make that black and white. Well, we can't even sort of comprehend the nature of our own existence. So how are we then supposed to pick apart all of the different components within it? It's like, oh, this is the right way to um, lose weight, but 10 people give you different advice. This is the best way to make money. 10 people give you different advice, or 100 people. It's like we're all just trying to fucking figure it out. Again, I'm going to use another pop culture reference. We're full of these today, but I love it. It's like the Pink Floyd song "Wish You Were Here." I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year, and really, that's what most people are. Like, let's not. Some people are slightly more informed than others. I'm not going to be building a fucking hadron collider anytime soon. Like they're
I'd
a,
love to see
they're
that though.
they're a qualified professionals for that reason. But most of what we see in the world is grey. But people want it to be black and white. It
Yeah.
might even be grey. It might be a more fucking distorted color. I'm just looking at another abstract painting there. It might be orange. You know what I mean? But people want to make it black or white. It's like it's not that way.
And I think the other thing when you talk about nuance is that we forget that is that we're so pushed by both the technology and the platform and I think the expectation of different industries that we should be an outspoken expert. I don't think all of us should be. I don't think many of us should have to be to just pay our mortgage or just to be happy. But we're kind of forced now, and so like we're we're using a style of conversation that it's not really natural. It doesn't feel good that we're all trying to be an expert among like all trying to be experts and talk like experts and not like people sometimes. And what works in the algorithm again doesn't work when you're just talking.
It's crazy when you think, isn't it? Like, do people really? I was I'm a bit on the fence about this, and I think for certain industries it probably is more experts than people. But I always wonder, do people
Mhm.
do I buy from you, or do you buy from me, or from the next person because we're an expert, or because we're a person that makes you feel a certain way? And it's probably a little bit of both, right? Because in
Yeah.
in demonstrating your expertise, you provide that reassurance and that sense of, again, to quote The Big Short, the movie about the financial crash in 2000.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Christian
yeah, yeah.
character's letter to his investors, where um, he says people choose an authority because it feels familiar. And then he says he kind of caveats that by saying, "But I'm not and never have been familiar." But we kind of want that familiarity. Well, is that familiarity because they're an expert or because they're a certain type of person? I mean, maybe we're going way too deep here. I'm going way. This is
Uh,
probably this is going right off piece there, but like I do wonder that really whether people let's try and I'm going to try and think of a way to like tie it back into the main topic. So the way I would describe it is like do we lose hope or is it flip it on its head actually? Can we regain hope through feeling as though we're around more experts, or do we regain more hope by feeling like we're around empathetic human beings? Because they are two very different things. A lot of the time, when someone tries to be an expert, they lose that empathy. But then in being empathetic, do they lose that element of expertise? I don't know. So I'm just going to kind of throw that bombshell to you and see if you can throw that hand grenade and see if you can like rescue the point there.
I think that I'm going to use my improv experience where when you first find improv, when you first find like unscripted theater and improv, it's it's the people. It really is the people. You're all like you're all people that have found each other in this odd art form for different reasons, but you find each other there and you're just happy to be seen and felt and heard and understood for the person you are. Later on, you start meeting better, amazing teachers, better improvisers, becoming better at what you do. And so the challenge to be better, you find like like there's hope in seeing art that is just better than you've ever imagined, and so somewhere you can go. But I think that the answer is it depends, which is the answer I give when I train improv and someone asks like, what do you do in this situation? It's always it depends. You're making it up. And you learn different tools and different methods by which you find the best possible thing to do in a given circumstance that'll make everyone feel safe and fun. But it is people. At the end of the day, like it is people. No amount of wisdom, intelligence, pro tips, top ten prompts will ever replace people because people are not results oriented. It's not like there's no like we're not here because we have the same KPIs. We're here just because we like breathing the same oxygen and smelling the same stuff and shooting the shit and then like making profound discoveries together. Like I think that there's still hope in people. The fear is again, the fear is always that like the the few real powerful experts there are will have a certain disdain for people and make us all obsolete. But I don't think that that's ever going to really be the case. I think that we will always prevail in some way, shape, or form. Financially, that one I don't know. Like but empathetically, emotionally, I think that we do have each other's back.
I think
And no matter what happens, I think we'll still have each other's back.
because my opinion is that, and I think you've said this point earlier, or you made a point similar to this. I think most people at their core are empathetic beings, but they get caught up in all the noise and the madness and they become parrots for it almost like they're imitating a message that they've read or that they've heard somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
not really what they think. And it's almost like they sound like zombies, really. It's like, when a zombie bites another zombie and then the zombie just kind of regurgitates what their behaviors and everything else. It's
Yeah.
And I've probably been as guilty of that as anyone, you know. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, we're all trying to survive, and sometimes survival means doing what seems successful.
yeah.
But now it's like, what's successful is going to be replicable and automated and scalable. So like we might just be left with each other. I think it's kind of like we are at the end of the day, we're going to be left with each other. There's like if AI does everything for us, and like what are we left with? Still us. Like, and so we have to be kinder to each other. We have to find a way to live with each other. Like when all the noise disappears, we're still here. And it's I'm more curious to see what happens to anything else.
The way that I kind of um marry the advent of AI with the beauty of the human experience is like what I said before, where we had our call and I used AI to pick out the juiciest bits of our conversation.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of I think how we can help each other while also living in this technologically advancing world. Well, it's always technologically advancing, but
Yeah.
it's a rating.
Progress never sleeps.
Yeah, progress never sleeps, but like especially with the progress that's being made right now, is like that'll never go away for me. Like my advice to any writers, especially watching this, would be just like do not ever regurgitate what someone else has written. Because apart from anything else, one thing you don't know if it's true. You don't
Yeah.
you have no sources to corroborate on that because you're taking it from somewhere else. But just try and involve other humans as much as possible. One thing that I always got told at the start of my career, and especially when I was an entry level member of staff was, basically don't ask questions, discouraging curiosity. You made a point around curiosity earlier and the importance of that. Well, that's never been more important than now. I think if anything, curiosity has taken on an even greater degree of importance because, um, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there that you could take at face value. And with the misinformation that's being spread right now and the advent of AI, which kind of compounds that even more, that could be fatal. So I would say to any writers, interview people, ask subject matter experts as many questions as you want. Like honestly, like and this is where again, this is where I really enjoy working for that catering equipment buying consortium that I mentioned to you earlier. Like really successful guys, like the guys who are involved in the managing and the day-to-day running of that are like, you know, they're like it depends on your kind of metric of success, but like they're successful in just about every metric you could think of. Like they've got a really successful business, the members love them, they're making good money from it, like really good money from it, and it's like even like one of the guys there, one of the directors who didn't have to say this to me. When I got on board, he said to me, "No question is a stupid question. Always feel like you." But it's
Yeah.
kind of like humbling, and it actually made me a little bit emotional when he said that because I've had lots and lots of middle managers in my life who have basically said, "Don't ask me so many questions," and I kind of get it. I do get it. It's like there's only so many hours in the day, and I get people get stressed about it. But if you're discouraging curiosity and you're discouraging, any kind of um original thinking or critical thinking, most importantly, what kind of world are you left with? Because it's not just that one person. It's like if everybody thinks that, or if most middle managers peddle that narrative of you shouldn't ask that many questions, only ask sensible questions, like, that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the world, like, in ways you can't imagine. So that was just a point I wanted to make there.
I'm going to try to bring a few things together. Let's see how this works. Is you like there's nothing that I love more than if you going back to movies, going back to narrative and stories. I love when I don't know everything. I love not knowing everything because then you're curious. If you never know, that's kind of amazing. If you're always curious about something, that's incredible. My like then taking it back to like being an atheist versus agnostic, like I'm culturally I'm Jewish. Being Jewish is kind of weird. Like just norm in normal circumstances, being Jewish is kind of weird because it's both cultural thing, but also wrapped up in the religion. So it's hard to divest from either side. But the one thing I'll say about being Jewish that I've kept that I like, aside from the food, is is that it's always about the curiosity and not knowing stuff and just accepting the mystery. My favorite movie is A Serious Man, like the Coen Brothers movie,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
none of it wraps up. None of it like there's no finality to what actually happens. You're left with what? And that feeling, I love it. When I was um going back to that, like there like every all Jewish folks, we go through the bar bat mitzvah, and it's like this galvanizing moment of reading the Torah in front of family and reading a little portion of like of our scripture and analyzing it. And in my portion, many years ago, was the part I was reading was after the Hebrews had escaped from slavery in Egypt. We were wandering the desert for way too long. We were out of food, out of flat, shitty bread. Um, and we didn't know what to do. And so we looked up to the sky and said, God, I know you freed us. Can you do one more solid and give us food? And
Too
God,
solid.
and
I love that description.
I mean, like the Old Testament God had already done some real shady stuff to, like the stories there are crazy. But anyway, like really, biblical justice is terrifying. But in that moment, God was fed up, and he said, "You know what? You're asking me too much. I'm going to punish you for that. Here is a bunch of snakes. Deal with that." And at 12, 13, when you get your bar mitzvah, 13 for guys, I was like, what do you do with that? That's so unkind. That's so, if God's all powerful, why doesn't he just do the right thing? Give him food. And I'll never forget that when I went to the rabbi to ask what's going, like, why? And the rabbi didn't have an answer for me. He didn't like, he just said that it's good that we ask these questions. And I will never really know why. Like, I mean, and it's also a story. It never didn't act, I think probably didn't happen. Maybe it did. Who knows? Probably not. Who knows? I don't want to know. I like not knowing. Um, but that story is there for us to just wonder about. Like if you ask ChatGPT, it probably gives you an answer, but it's not, but it strips away the wonder of it. It strips away the curiosity of like just interpreting it for yourself and letting it live in you as a guide or as something that like allows you to have some principles. But the not knowing is so much stronger than the knowing. In A Serious Man, it's a retelling of the Book of Job, and the Coen brothers tell it through the lens of a middle-aged guy whose life is falling apart for no apparent reason.
I
And at
love it.
some point,
I love a movie about a middle-aged guy whose life is falling apart, by the way. That's
oh
one.
yeah, oh, it's an amazing movie. And at some point, he goes to rabbis. His faith is being shattered, and he goes to the rabbis and asks, and one of the rabbis tells a story that's like somewhat related. And I won't tell the story because it's worth watching the movie because it's also just it's beautifully done. And the story does not have a resolution. It doesn't have a resolution. And the closest thing the rabbi can say is that sometimes not knowing something can be painful, but that pain can disappear, and you return to life. And as a Buddhist would say, this too shall pass. And the main character, the protagonist of the movie, is like, but what happened? What happened to all these people? What happened to them? And the rabbi says, who cares? Like the story is that you're not meant to know each action each action that happened after. You're left with you're left with a parable that you could just wonder and be curious about.
I think as well, like what I think this sort of ties in with what you've just said, but obviously I don't want to like misinterpret it either. But I would also say that it's not so much what happens in that story, it's what you take from it and
Yeah.
how that informs your story. It's always about when you think about it, let's be honest. Well, this depends on what you believe. Now, there's like two parts to this. There's like let's go with the naive part of my brain first, and then I'll go to the realistic part of my brain. The naive part of my brain thinks, okay, every book, every poem, every song, every sonnet, every film, every play is all aimed at making you more informed about the world and thus making more informed choices within your life. You would like to.
Yeah.
That's the naive, idealistic part. then there's a little bit of realism, which is like this is someone pushing their own agenda, and we know that there's a lot of agenda pushing, particularly in Hollywood, and also, by the way, in academia, because when
Of
I was at
course, yeah.
university, it was coincidental how many of my lecturers were promoting their own books and actually teaching their own books in the
Yeah,
seminars.
of
So I
course.
was like, hang on, this name looks familiar. Oh yeah, it's the guy sat right fucking there. But I prefer to maybe lean a bit more to the naive, idealistic part of my brain, which is like that's what it should be. It's like hopefully people watching this, they might make choices, like even little choices, be it consciously or subconsciously, that make their lives a little bit better. That is always what good art is trying to do. And it goes back to this idea of hope. It's, you would like to think that not every form of art, obviously, because some of it's very drab and dreary, and that can be good too, by the way. Especially
Yeah.
if you learn the wrongs of yesterday, like if you think about war films and war poetry and all that stuff. Okay, there is no happy ending because we know what happens, but it's like if we can learn from that and our tomorrow is brighter because of it. I always think that there is an ultimate motive, and it's supposed to be positive, and it's supposed to help people live their best lives, is my opinion, and that's hopefully what we can do through this unique
And
medium.
it's also and any piece of art, any all this stuff, it's just meant to give us more like it's giving us more tools to think and feel around our experience. Like it's more like it's screaming into the void of not knowing, and it's making us all feel like to get that we all share a big bucket of emotions. That we're not alone. If you see a work of art that really transcends and makes you feel something, you don't feel alone in that moment. You feel like you're talking to that artist. And I mean, if we're talking about marketing that really works, it's marketing that makes you feel that makes you like that makes you feel something, makes you care, and makes you feel cared for. Like, and it's almost a little bit scary in a way that our art form is meant to peak that feeling to get you to buy something. But that's why the best marketers are people who, they understand that's the game. Of course it is. But they do want to give people a little moment of joy or emotion or pathos or something that they really like. The best marketers really care and want and want to be able to let you pause in that moment to have an experience that matters. Then you'll go and buy something great for the company. But like, but it's great when we care about each other like that. It's great when even the like art that some folks wouldn't think is art, like the creative things that people wouldn't label as such, the best versions of those still like make us lean forward and make us feel connected to another person in that moment. I like one of the like a key in improv that like maybe addresses all the stuff on LinkedIn, all of like the like everyone trying to like everyone erecting a wall around themselves and pushing that wall and people's thoughts colliding and not intertwining, is that in improv you have to be interested, not interesting. Like if you come up and you make a great joke, but if you do it in a silo and you're not connecting with a person, that'll be funny, but it won't have legs. If you come on stage and it's two people who look at each other and they're interested in each other, the entire audience will also lean forward and be like, what is this? Like, what is this? And the moment someone says something to point the spotlight at them, to say do something interesting, that's the moment where that connection kind of dissipates, and you can live in that connection forever. Like the best improv.
It's like what we're doing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here with, I mean, I've got some questions pre-prepared, but most of these podcasts that I do, 90% of it is off the cuff. 80 to 90% of it is improvised, and that's important because if people feel like they're just watching another marketing podcast where what are the big trends for 2025 right now, where you might explore, we could have just done one question, how is AI going to impact the world, and just moved on from it. But like
Mm.
we've had a conversation with the record button on, and this is what I say to every single guest. This is what it should be. If people feel that connection between us, hopefully that resonates a lot more with them. And I think people should do that on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
I talk about my experiences. Okay, so I'm talking about my experiences, but I'm linking it back to the individual by saying, look, if you felt this, give this a thumbs up, or that feeling when da 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 da, and it will pretty much be something that people can relate to. In fact, sometimes people
Yeah.
say to me like, you write about things that I haven't really seen other people write about because they think it's too risky. But what? How can it be too risky? You do improv, which a lot of people might argue is a really risky thing to do because it's taking yourself right out of your comfort zone. But you're looking at it going, well, it's not risky. I enjoy doing it, and people feel a connection with me, and we have better relationships as a result. Like at the end of the day, that's well, unless I want to obviously put that as a question to you. Is that the kind of feeling you get from it?
What's it like? What feeling that it's risky? That it's a
Well, yeah, that it's risky, but you'll do it anyway, because it's so kind of cathartic that way that you have that dread. And this is the thing about being on LinkedIn and about writing content on social media. A lot of people are really scared to be themselves. Why? Who makes these rules about who you should be or what you should be?
I mean, the honest answer is that, employers like LinkedIn, again, LinkedIn is such a weird animal because it used to be a job board. And so
Yeah.
it's not like it wasn't designed for people to be like just like goofing off and having fun. Like that was that what but where is left for that? Like, and LinkedIn is a place where people can be professionally kind of goofy
Yeah.
and make connections between marketers are now making interesting connections to life that wouldn't be on a Facebook or an Instagram. It's like like there is something in that. Like when you write about just life, it does remind people that work is also life and life is also work. Um, I mean, people are scared to be themselves and then not get engagement. People are scared to be themselves and like, I go on stage and so I do a one person show, like where I play multiple characters and sometimes uh the show will not go well and it's a room full of people watching me be vulnerable and it not working. And that's no fun, but so like I can and like and I can see why a lot of people don't want to do that because that's not fun, but it's still worth and I don't encourage people to force themselves to package themselves in such a way if it's not themselves. Like uh if you're not the kind of person that wants to write on LinkedIn, it's weird that there's people are being punished and not getting gigs because that's just not who they are. Like some people don't want to be a personal brand. Like some people don't want to be improvisers. They shouldn't not get adoration and respect and all that because of like or they shouldn't like be labeled as not themselves because they're not willing to go be goofy on stage. Like everyone's authentic in their own way. So my hope would be that that's sort of respected. Uh, And also LinkedIn, like also, I've always wondered if I were to record one of my solo shows, put it on LinkedIn, I feel like I would never get hired again. The last show I did a few days ago, I did a solo show, 20-minute slot, and I think that I played two aquatic beings that made a kid that became landbound, but then the kid had never had the birds and the bees talk with those characters, and it ended with the mother character becoming a giant Yggdrasil style tree of life and subsuming the kid, and it was like theatrically insane. The audience really liked it. I got great compliments after the show. But if like a prospective employer were to watch me do that, I don't know whether or not I'd be happy if they wanted to hire me or not. I don't
People
know.
interpret it in different ways. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
look at something like that, and hopefully the viewers would. And I think, it's an out there idea, but it also shows how creative you are and how able you are to think of these ideas, off the cuff like that. I think that's amazing. Like, I'd look at that and think, well, because it's like people complicate this stuff. And I will let you go. And obviously, I know you've got to go and eat and stuff, but we'll wrap up in about 5, 10 minutes. But basically, the way I look at it is, if you can come up with something like that, you know you'd like to think that, you mentioned earlier about CNC drilling, things like that, sheet metal. I mean, when you look at things like that, those are quite literal things, if you know what I mean. Like the way you're writing
Yeah.
that is quite literal. Whereas if you can come up with something as obscure as what you've just described there, surely looking at a white paper on CNC drilling or, I don't know, a social media post about fucking tungsten alloy metal seems comparatively simple. I don't know, but I mean, I know that they're different disciplines. I get that, and it is horses for courses. But I think what you've got there is a great example of your ingenuity, and I would imagine that coming up with something like that in front of loads of people is infinitely more difficult than writing an article about what I don't know, yeah, what a what a CNC drilling machine does. I don't know if that's ever something you would write about, but
It,
yeah,
it it'd be a milling. It would be a milling machine. It'd be a milling machine or I forget the other one. There's like two main machines I used to read about. Like
if
I
anyone's
like
watching, anyone in that industry watching who wants a copywriter, Isaac's your guy.
I mean I swear I'll remember. Oh, a lathe. It's a milling machine or a lathe. I think were the two that I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Uh, I will say this that's like I like to see all this stuff as equally challenging and equally valuable and equally weird in its own way. Like if like so like I find some copywriting tasks very challenging. I find going on stage and playing and pretending that I am an entire forest of living trees, that's easier for me than some copywriting tasks. So I think that when we talk about like creativity and the challenge of creativity, it's like it's seeing any of these given tasks as having the potential for a ton of imagination and a ton of creativity, and not seeing one thing as more impactful in that regard than the other. Like, and I think that what I would love to do, like if like I think my dream job would be to like get into different organizations that have what they believe could be dry content, and encouraging the folks who do the creative work to like let their wildest ideas just percolate and and connect emotionally to how they if we're talking about like milling machines, there's so like there's so much creativity and so much imagination that you can affix to that. Like, and I'd love to help people find that within themselves, because I know how to do it on stage I know how to do it on stage. I know how to do it. I know how to be in a room full of people and help folks like arrive at the wildest ideas, and then point to what is the emotional core of that idea. There's a lot of wisdom and intelligence in that idea. Let's unpack that. But that takes time and thought and vulnerability, which we may start to lose because of AI, because of the speed of AI. Uh, and I, and yeah, I don't know that like I would just love it if I would love it that if I see that I spot one of your questions, that what are your predictions for the future? I'd love it if I don't know if I can predict it, but I'd love in the future for more companies and brands and organizations like ever just to recognize how important time is and give that back to as many people as they can, to let because it takes time to care about something. It takes time to build emotional connections. It takes time to let feelings translate into ideas, into material. And all the stuff that comes out of that process is infinitely more interesting and fun when a process when we've taken the time to let all that digest. Where even if the end result is like a carbon copy of that, like if AI spits out a carbon copy of what that could have been, imagine what it could have been if you'd given that time to it. Imagine if you just let a group of creatives or a group of non-creatives get in a room with someone with my improv training, or someone or a writer, and just play. You're going to come up with so many amazing things. You're going to create an ecosystem where like people are supporting each other's ideas and supporting each other's like imagination, and not looking for ways to cut it.
I think Well, as you said there, that was pretty much the final question. But I think one of the things I'd like to say, just to kind of wrap it up, is, and this really ties in with what we've said throughout this, really. But especially, well, it's important at any level, but especially if you're early in your career, that collaboration with like-minded people is so, so important. Like, don't exist in a silo. You could probably get away with that 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's really important. It's really important to do what we're doing today and to get on calls with people and to share in your knowledge, because let's face it, there's going to be so much you'll know that I won't know, and vice versa. Um, if you think that you're in a position where you don't really need to learn from anyone, or you don't like the idea of social interaction, again, I'm maybe going to make one of those sweeping statements that we talked about earlier, but you are in danger of putting yourself in a really difficult position. That's probably the most diplomatic way I can put it. If you think that that you've learned everything you need to, then more power to you. That's a great if that's the case. But I think that, I mean, there's so many people in our industry that have reached out to me and said, do you know of any communities where people meet up on a monthly basis and just have it out, to talk
Yeah.
about what they're learning, what they're seeing, and almost like, tying it in with what you've said, like improvising with certain things, and you know, I don't want to distill it down to this, because it's not just a character building thing, but kind of
Mm.
your resilience and building your confidence that way. Just purely by picking up on someone's energy and their emotion and responding accordingly. I mean, I've tried to build communities like this in the past, and when I say I've tried, I've come up with a name and then I've built a spreadsheet of names. I haven't done anything with it. But if anyone's watching this who really wants to build a community, then let me know, because I actually know, I would say, between 25 and 50 writers on LinkedIn who I'm on good terms with. Obviously, you're one. I know quite a few others. One of my main clients is a writer, actually.
Yeah.
He's very well versed in writing and poetry. And um, yeah, he really, really knows his shit. He reads more than I do, I can tell you that. But well, maybe not more than I used to. Back in the day, I used to read a lot.
Ah.
Anyway, but we need to get this. I think that would be one of my key takeaways from this, would be to just embrace the idea of community, whether you're introverted, extroverted, it doesn't matter. And when I say community, I don't necessarily mean hosting a fucking Zoom call with 30 people on it. I just mean,
Yeah.
commenting on things or showing that curiosity, following creators, even just, you don't even need to actively participate, just observing, but being part of that community. Distinguishing between fact and fiction, because believe you me, and I'm saying this I know you know this, but for the viewers, like, there is fucking fiction out there. And if you
Yeah.
really believe that as fact, you could find yourself going down a path you really don't want to go down very quickly.
Yeah. And I will add to that I think a lot of marketers nowadays are trying to upskill in as many things as possible,
Yeah.
and they're trying to be as good as possible. And it would just warm my aging heart if we, as community members and people who are in positions to lead communities, can give space for people to just be bad at stuff, like to just like suck at stuff, and not immediately say you have to upskill in this, and this. Like, we can, it kind of is like our moment to suck at stuff, because we know that we're not going to outclass certain machines, and we can give each other so much grace as people. And there's just nothing more fun than fucking around with a creative something or anything, and just having it kind of suck, and and like and accepting that with a bunch of people, like and just letting each other do that without judgment, letting each other do that without feeling judged ourselves. There's just so much potential for that, and I hope that there's more of that.
Mhm. We should call this podcast "Nothing Beats Fucking Things Up."
I like that. I like that. I also realize that I'm curious, anyone that's made it to this point, do I still have a voice anymore? I've been like so emphatic the whole time.
No, no, it's
And I
good.
just and like the other day I did 3 improv shows in a row just by some happenstance. It was there was a weird calendar mishap where I was just in 3 shows, and at the end of it I was just vibrating in another plane of existence. And to your credit, you really got me there again. And if we were to do this again, I feel bad and I haven't taken my own advice, which I try to, which is to ask questions. But I feel like, you've been interviewing me and I've just been going. Don't do what I do. Ask people questions.
No, and it's really good. I mean, I think no, but I think you've posed some very interesting questions and some very interesting thoughts throughout this. So you've kind of been inquisitive in your own way because you've made me think a lot.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really good. And I think, like I say, when I watch this back, I have this thing and I have another podcast. I have about a million of these. I am that guy. I am that stereotypical podcasting guy. I've even
Nice.
got in true stereotypical form. I've even got a beanie hat, a Carhartt beanie hat.
Oh,
So
that's
that,
perfect.
that just kind of completes the set. But basically, I'm just going to wear it for the last 2 minutes. But basically, I forget all the things I've talked about when I do stuff like this. So I'm going to watch it back, and I'm sure there'll be some brilliant insights from you and some not so brilliant insights from me. But
Or
no, I
some
really enjoyed it.
schlock from me too. I would love if there's a bunch of schlock from me.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully the
Yeah, I
audience
loved
will
it.
too. Quick one before you go: where can people find you if they want to connect with you or find out more about the topics we discussed today?
Just for me, that they can go to I think lesterisaacsimon.com is my portfolio site. It's kind of it's a janky little website that has some of my work. It has a reading list of books I really like, including some improv books that I've learned from. Um, if if folks want to do more improv, that's a like Google improv in your area and then take the first 101 class that you find. It'll change your life. It'll make you so happy. It will like make you hemorrhage with joy. You can also just find me on LinkedIn at Lester Isaac Simon. I don't have all that much media out. This is my first podcast appearance, so
Hey,
probably because I prattle on incessantly. So we'll see if I'm ever a guest somewhere else ever again. Uh, but yeah, I'm quite easy to find in that regard, and I'm always up for like yammering on more. This has been an honor and a privilege, by the way, and I can't wait to see you ascend to new levels of podcasting.
well, I think given the length of this podcast, I'll certainly have enough material for the shorts. Sometimes in the past when I've done shorter podcasts, I've looked at it and thought, I don't really know what I can get out of this for a LinkedIn short. With this, it'll probably be about, I can probably milk this for all it's worth. Honestly, I can get about 10 or 20 shorts out of this and just stagger them over a period of 2 months and then lose followers by the fucking bucket load. But there we go.
If there's anything I can do, I can help you lose followers, but I can help you gain the ones that matter.
Gain the ones that matter. I love that. Right. Go and eat your chicken biryani. Thank you so much. It's been
Thank you.
a
This has
pleasure,
been a,
man.
this has been a privilege. Cheers.